Our next guest is in the business of making history before it happens with his Trends Journal. It's online at trendsjournal.com. And he's Gerald Celente. And whenever he comes on the program, I'm telling you something, he always turns a few heads. People are tuning in from all over the world as we stream live at ksfo.com to listen to him. And he's here right now. Good morning, Gerald. Thanks for joining us on the Left Coast. How are you?
Thanks for having me on, Brian. I'm doing great.
So many questions, but the first one, I just want to backtrack a little bit, and I want our listeners to be reminded of the fact that you were one of the people who was taken by John Corzine. John Corzine, former governor of New Jersey. John Corzine, former Democrat Party operative. John Corzine, CEO of MF Global, that just had billions of dollars of money under management disappear. And you were one of those guys that had some money under management by MF Global. And did you ever get all your money back?
Well, two things. First of all, there's one that you forgot. He was also CEO of the Goldman Sachs gang.
That's right. And he was also a senator from New Jersey, so I forgot two major things.
Yeah.
Right.
And the other one was my money wasn't under management. It was in a segregated account. It was my own money. And I used to buy gold. When I buy a futures. So I buy, for instance, in April. I'd say I'm going to pick the gold up in November. So I had that money in a segregated account, and I kept putting money in until I got enough to pick it up. So they weren't even managing it; they stole it out of my account.
Yes. So that was money. That was segregated money. Those were your funds. They should not even have been able to touch that money.
Exactly. So I got about 93% of it back so far.
Jeez. Okay, has anybody gone to jail for any of this, and do you expect anybody to go to jail?
Not one head has rolled on Wall Street since the crash of 2008, the panic of '08. Nothing. Not one head rolled. You heard the Attorney General, Eric Holder. In essence, he said that they were too big to jail. That if we went after one of the too big to fail, it's in the Trends Journal, actually. If we went after one of the too big to fail banks, it could destabilize the markets, and it wouldn't be good for the economy. So they're better than us, they're bigger than us, so you don't go after them.
Gerald Celente with us from the Trends Journal. Again, online, trendsjournal.com, trendsresearch.com. Gerald, could you please explain to our audience what's happening with the Federal Reserve and Ben Bernanke pumping billions and billions and billions of dollars into our economy every month? Tell folks how that works.
What they're doing is they're propping up, they're rigging the bond market, essentially. They're spending $85 billion a month buying mortgage-backed securities and treasuries. And it keeps the prices where they are, and they're artificial. The same thing with interest rates. Interest rates are at record lows. This is in the 100 years since the Federal Reserve Mafia has taken over the nation, we've seen what's happened, and now they've dumped trillions actually of dollars as well, 17 trillion at last count, into not only our economy but propping up banks around the world. And by the way, this is against the Constitution. Section I think it's I forgot the article, but it's Section 8, I think, Article 5, that only Congress has the right to print and circulate money. And they turned it over on Christmas Eve in 1913, 100 years ago, to the Federal Reserve. When nobody was in Washington, it was a dirty deal done really quickly. And you look at how the dollar has depreciated since that time. It's down now I think we lost about 95% of the value of the dollar. And you go back to the Trends Journal, and you have it, and on page 26, the interest rate recovery. We wrote about this, over a month ago. And we said, and you can see what's going on now with the world equity markets. They're slumping all over, and the reason, of course, being is that Ben Bernanke has said that they're not sure if they're going to keep dumping this cheap money into the system. So you had a crash over in Japan. It's down over 7%. Equity
this
markets,
morning, right?
Yeah, equity markets down 2% around the world and plus. So let's make this 100% clear. Since the panic of '08 began, step number one was under Henry Paulson, under Bush, the U.S. Treasury Secretary. Oh, by the way, also a CEO of the Goldman Sachs gang. He made up the whole too big to fail lie, and they pumped all that money in. Oh, you remember they bailed out AIG? Nobody knew what an AIG was, but we had to bail out Goldman Sachs because they had a $13 billion bad bet. Then we saw under Obama, $900 billion. You remember those shovel-ready jobs? In case you have attention deficit disorder, anyone? And that didn't do it. Now the Federal Reserve has been dumping in trillions of dollars, rigging the bond market in front of our eyes, and now they came out yesterday and said, at some point we're going to have to stop this, and the markets went into panic. The only way that this economy is going up is by interest rates being at record lows and dumping all these trillions in so-called quantitative easing and stimulus, and it's not working. The jobs that have been lost since the panic began, and this is a fact, have been mostly middle-wage paying jobs. The jobs that have been created are mostly low-paying jobs. It's not working.
So again, you have this quantitative easing with the feds essentially buying our own debt. Okay, Gerald Celente from the Trends Journal, tell us what the long-term effect is for this. What is going to be the consequence of this type of bad economic behavior by the feds and being allowed by our government?
It's a continual decline of the American standard of living. What they're doing is they're debasing the currency in front of our eyes. So people say, will there be inflation? Not inflation in the sense, in the traditional term of supply and demand. If there's a lot of demand for the product, the price of the product goes up. This is more in line with Zimbabwe or other nations where the currency is devalued. The price of the product doesn't go up, but it takes you more money to buy it. They are destroying our nation in front of our eyes, and no one is doing anything about it other than more of the same. This is an atrocity that, in my view, that we allow a private bank, that's the other name, Federal Reserve, as
right.
federal as Federal Express. They're private bankers. This is a private organization that's taken over the printing and controlling of money of the people of the United States, and it's only going to get worse.
The Trends Journal, it's history before it happens. It's a wonderful, handsome publication. I enjoy receiving it. You can go online, trendsresearch.com or trendsjournal.com. And Gerald Celente, you are the man. Thanks for joining us, as always, out here on the left coast, sir. We really appreciate it.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Brian.
Excellent. Gerald Celente, 14 minutes past 6 on K.